Thank you very much. Very quickly, I'm going to invite the next panel onto the stage. May I please invite my session chair, Mr. Hashim Khan Hoti, who's a country head Islamic banking at Askari Bank Limited. The moderator for the next session is Mr. Fayyaz Rehman, who's a Vice President Product Development Shariah Compliance at Meezan Bank Limited. The panelists for the session include Fadlullah Wilmot, who's the country head Pakistan at Islamic Relief, Mr. Zulfiqar Khokar, who's the additional director at the State Bank of Pakistan, and Mr. Syed Asif Azeem, who's the chief manager Islamic Banking Group at Bank Alfalah. Just a note to the moderator, Fayyaz, if it's 1:20 right now, if it's at all possible to wrap things up just before 2 o'clock. We're running a little bit behind schedule, and since the panel is hopefully a thin one, if we can just take that time so that we can still make lunch and namaz. All right, over to you, sir.
Hello. Thank you very much, Rabia. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Definitely, we don't want to keep you waiting from the lunch, and we'll try to wrap it up as early as possible. One of the very core and important issue, specifically with reference to Islamic banks, is charity and CSR. Welcome, Mr. Fadlullah Wilmot. Mr. Fadlullah Wilmot is the president of Islamic Relief Pakistan, one of the largest Islamic NGO in Pakistan. I would start from the session chairman, Mr. Hashim Khan Hoti. How do you see Islamic banks through CSR and charity contributing towards the uplift of the poor, needy, and bringing a positive change in the socio-ecological environment of the country?
Thank you very much. I would start by saying that this morning Dr. Anis Saab started off the session very well in his keynote speech, where he mentioned that in fact this corporate responsibility and the global ethics issue is not only something we should be doing, but rather it can be categorized as ibadat and hukuk al-ibad area. So a lot of people are engaged in this, but the banks, Islamic banks, as you know, are very new in Pakistan in general, and they, although do their business in a Sharia compliant manner, but concentrate primarily on their own profitability to be able to continue doing the business and giving the product offerings. Therefore, they are directly not involved in any microfinance or issues, but there is an unintended charity which comes out of them, which is given to a lot of charitable organizations. And we've seen a lot of them do their part in the internally displaced persons a couple of years ago, then last year in the flood relief, and also this year in the flood relief in Sindh. So in that manner, small manner, they are contributing towards this area.
There was a guy who came to me, and we having issues regarding this charity, and they say Islamic banks, yes, they are doing charity, but I would like to quote in one word कि जिस तरह वो चैरिटी कर रहे हैं उसकी ये मिसाल सामने आती है कि देने थे तेरे 400 फ़िलहाल 4 रख पैवस्ता रह शजर से उम्मीदें बहार रख. तो we need to do a lot more. I would ask Mr. Fadlullah Wilmot, due to a series of man-made and natural disasters lately, how long-term and sustainable impact could be obtained and achieved by the MFIs and Islamic banks in these kinds of disasters, and to provide relief and rehabilitation to the poor and sufferers of these disasters? I think... no, you have to hold the mic, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I think we have to look at this from two perspectives. Because, I don't know, do you have my PowerPoint there? Just I would like to show you something what happened in Bangladesh. Anyway, I can keep talking. Basically, if we look at the immediate aftermath of a disaster, people need food, people need water, people need medical attention. And we can do that. But then 6 months down the line, when they've lost all their means of livelihood, who is going to help them restore their livelihood? While the TV cameras are there, seeing people in the flood-affected areas and in tents and things, okay, people get worried and they rush to help. But after that, who is going to help these guys recover their lives again? And I'd just like to share with you, if you can just very quickly, who can move the slides? Very quick. No, that's the wrong one, the wrong presentation, or the other presentation. There are two on that this. But what happened in Bangladesh, for example, after Sida, we were quite active. Yes. What? It's C, you know, the number two, that one. Number two. Yes, okay. And I can use it? This, okay, great. Okay, fine. Oh, God. Is this number two? No, this is not number two. How do I go back? How do I go? Can you go to the one with number two? Two. Next, underneath. Yes, that's it. Okay, what we did in Bangladesh, we give immediate relief, and all the Islamic banks were involved in that. But also we had a huge fund, what we did with Islamic microfinance after the disaster, to help people recover their livelihoods. And that was a fund of about $20 million. And what we did with that, we gave Khad Hassan for 3 years. Because these guys have lost everything, so we shouldn't be talking about Mudaraba, Musharaka, Muajil, or anything like that for this 3 years, because they've lost everything. But after 3 years, then you can start doing, you can recycle the funds, because it's a microfinance loan. It's not a grant. And by doing that, you are helping sustainable development. So in the wake of a disaster, I think that Islamic banks and other corporate social responsibility in Pakistan could well look at this one. Could well look at establishing that sort of fund to help the people recover their livelihoods. I just, I'll talk about it later. But that was the thing we did. This is where we open up branches in Bangladesh to help the Sida victims with a help that would help them sustain their lives after the disaster. Okay.
I would just like to add this. We do have few organizations in Pakistan, and one of them is a Hoti, who is totally providing Qarz-e Hasna to the poor people, and their ambit is increasing day by day, and I think they have crossed 60,000 members. I would come to Mr. Zulfiqar Khokar of, would you please, can you elaborate what steps SBP is taking to increase this Islamic microfinance, or is there any vision or direction for the Islamic banks to enter into this area?
Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to give you what State Bank doing and in terms of Islamic microfinance and CSR. As we all know, this is a short session. We have to close it out. Just to put and keep everybody on the same platform, I will take 1 or 2 minutes. So first of all, we have to see what is the CSR universe that is applicable to Islamic banks, Islamic banking institutions. The normal CSR that we talk of, the normal conventional corporates, both banks and otherwise, is equally applicable to Islamic banks. Besides, in addition to that, there are other requirements of a CSR which are considered necessary for Islamic banking institutions. In this regard, there is a formal AOFI governance standard available that guides the conduct of Islamic banking institutions to specifically take care of CSR. I will just list down 4 or 5 key areas where Islamic banks have to look into. In terms of CSR, for Islamic banks, there are two kind of requirements. One is the mandatory conduct and the other is the recommendatory conduct. In the mandatory conduct, it's the client screening, client dealing, prohibited earnings, employee welfare and zakat. And I think for all of these activities other than the zakat, probably all Islamic bank institutions in Pakistan are taken care of. On the recommendatory front, the recommendatory CSR that is recommended by AOFI for Islamic banking institutions, there are important things here that we can discuss here further as well. There are 5 things that the AOFI talks of. One is the Qarz-e Hasana Fund. The other is the reduction of adverse impact on environment. The third is the social development in environment-based investment quotas, which means you have to have financing quotas for these social development and environmental areas as well. Excellent customer services, micro and small business social savings and investments, charitable activities and Waqf management. So if we look at the proposed CSR universe for Islamic banks, in the context of Islamic finance, 3 things stand out. One is the Qarz-e Hasana, the other is the social financing quotas in a bank, and the third is micro and small business policies and in terms of both savings and financing. So within these 3 areas, if we look into, so now we have 3 areas for Islamic bank institutions to look for this in terms of CSR. One is the Qarz-e Hasana, other is the specific quotas for priority social areas, and the third is facilitating savings and financing to micro and small enterprises. So keeping these 3 things in mind, this is the recommendatory conduct for IBI. Islamic microfinance front, for Islamic microfinance, again, we have to look into it from 2 perspectives. One is the normal CSR perspective that people look into for microfinance. The other is, this is a commercial opportunity as well. So from a CSR perspective, again, in Pakistan, there are a few institutions which you referred as well, which are doing Qarz-e Hasana as of today as well. And there are other relief organizations which you referred as well, which are doing in CSR activities. These are not the financing activities as such, these are direct relief activities. So from our perspective, from a central bank perspective, what we have done that we have given option to IBIs, both in terms of the normal CSR that they conduct and in terms of the charity funds that they have. So they have a specifically detailed board-approved policies to enter into all these areas. So what I can suggest or put before the audience as well, that in terms of, now we have to have if we are able to do a cross-fertilization of CSR activities vis-a-vis Islamic microfinance, there are 3 or 4 things which Islamic banks can look into in consultation or by working together with the actual players in the market. I.e., the Islamic banks have to differentiate between 2 funds. One is the normal CSR funds, the other is the charity funds. From our perspective as a regulator, we do not consider charity funds to be part of the CSR of the Islamic banking institution, which means that there should be no brand or perceptual mileage can be taken out of the charitable activities, because these were the prohibited earnings which were with the Islamic banking institution, which they have to give to the charitable causes. So in terms of CSR has to be different and the charitable activities have to be different. Within both these contexts, what Islamic banking institutions can do, that they can enter into partnerships with MFIs in terms of 1, providing Qarz-e Hasana financing facilities. Number 2, providing micro saving and micro financing facilities. Number 3, they can if they wish to initiate a small project with MFIs as well, so that they can actually go and have a real feel of what is the microfinance. Number 4, based on their own small pilot or initiation, they can formally go into microfinance, because we have a whole proper regulatory framework available in Pakistan, with Islamic bankers know, to conduct formal Islamic microfinance banking in Pakistan. And one of the major need of Islamic MFIs, which is not met yet, is the availability of commercial funding for them. Like the Islamic microfinance institutions cannot go to a conventional bank for a credit lines. the only option they have is to go to Islamic banks. And likewise, Islamic banks have this opportunity to place wholesale funds with Islamic microfinance institutions. So these are the 4 or 5 major areas and the overall areas that I talked about where Islamic banks and the Islamic microfinance universe can match with each other as well.
Very rightly pointed out the difference between CSR and charity. I would like to come to Mr. Asif Azeem. Can you, you are an Islamic banker, can you provide us the details how exactly the Islamic banks are contributing towards CSR and how effectively and efficiently they are using the charity funds? Can you please elaborate?
Yeah, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. As far as CSR is concerned, basically, if being a Muslim, if we go and check what the message we have given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Quran, there are 3 basics fundamentals. If we all should abide, I'm 100% sure, inshallah ta'ala, we will have a good Islamic banking setup.
Exactly.
Like number 1, mankind is the representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the earth. The second is the divine accountability. And the third one is duty on mankind to enjoin goods and forbid evils.
Exactly.
Because if we follow what kind of instructions has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given in all these 3 fundamentals, and so we hope by adopting these kind of regulations and rules, our system will automatically in a right place. Number 1, as the mankind is the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent as a representative on earth. So whatever as an individual or as an organizations we have is all, we are the custodian of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If it is wealth given by us, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if some system that we have to follow, that we have to do as per the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guideline what they have given to us.
Of course.
And second thing which is very important is the divine accountability. The divine accountability divides the 2 basic things. That's important is on the day of judgment, every individual will be accountable for what he and she has done during his life on the earth.
Exactly.
In a ibadat way, in a transaction way, if we will remember these kind of things, that we will be accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment. So I hope inshallah ta'ala we will not miss any positive line for any doing transactions.
Exactly.
And the third one is the duty on mankind. What duty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to mankind? There's 2 positive things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his prescription giving 2 tablets. 1 tablet you can name it do, that is the positive things, and the second tablets is don'ts, that is don'ts means negative things. So do means the system which is very important is the permissible and recommended actions, and don'ts means the non-recommended actions and not permissible. So if we will think of these 2 things, that's what are the permissible transactions or recommended actions. So if we'll follow these kind of actions, so Islamic bankings, alhamdulillah, as of today, as they are growing, so they have to be very good in corporate social responsibility on an individual basis and on an organization basis. So if we will follow the instruction, what the true guidelines for every transactions, what are the true guidelines for dealing with the people as well. If we know are some negative aspects of our products, so it's our duty to inform the customer as well. Okay, you are investing. If you will invest these kind of things, this will be the minimum return. So anything if you know that you don't know to hide with the customer. So if we will go with these kind of things, inshallah ta'ala, I hope, inshallah, the Islamic banking, the way growing will grow further, inshallah.
Okay. Coming to Mr. Fadlullah Wilmot, how and in what major areas do you see the collaboration between the Islamic banks and MFIs or the CBOs working? And definitely you've highlighted some, but practically what is the level of cooperation? How do you see, is it growing, or is there any potential of joint collaborations? Are there any past experiences in Pakistan particularly and in world over generally? Can you please hold on the mic, please?
I think if we look at it, if you remember, some banks regard microfinance as a business.
Okay.
Some people regard it as a development program and they give lower rates of interest. Some banks regard it as part of CSR. Islamic Relief is working with HSBC. We haven't received any funds from any Islamic banks yet for our microfinance program. So there is a variety of attitudes towards, in the banking sector, towards how they view microfinance. Okay. In Bangladesh, we got funds also from Islamic banks. And the system varied. As I mentioned, some gave funds which were sort of like a donation, which we gave as Qad Hasna, but they made a condition. First 3 years after the cyclone, no, it's purely Qadr Hasan. After that, it becomes a waqf, and you recycle the funds on a normal microcredit system.
Okay.
Other people, we work with an Islamic bank on agricultural loans. So on a marabaha, a musharaka basis, they gave us, and we were acting as that bank's agents.
Okay.
Dealing with, because they don't have the presence on the ground in all the villages where we're working. And I'd just like to share with my central banking friend here the problem that we have. We've established 650 CBOs in Balochistan. But because they're so remote, they want to have savings. They want to save money for emergencies. But it's very difficult for them, one, to open accounts, because even the identity card problem is there. And even if they do have that, to go to the bank physically, and because we want to make women as essential participants in this community-based organization, how to get women willing to go all that distance to the bank, and then if they do open a bank account, how do they operate it? So so with microfinance system, we can help to overcome that, but we can't take savings according to Governor Pakistan rules. In Bangladesh, MFIs are allowed to take savings. So I think there's a variety of ways of doing this, but I would like to work closer with Islamic banks in Pakistan through CSR to reach out to more people in dealing with this issue. One final point I would like to mention here is the need to look at the ultra poor, because these are the people who are left off the government safety nets. They probably missed out on the Watan card, the ultra poor.
Okay.
They probably miss out on government services. They also, these poor people miss out on social safety nets. In rural communities, there are some existing, so they also miss out on that. So I think in all microfinance programs and in cooperation with banks, we have to look at this bottom 10% of the ultra poor, because they're left off the radar completely.
Okay.
And they don't get support from government or non-government institutions. They work harder for less money.
Okay.
Of course, they have less assets. Women work harder, children work harder. So this is a plea that when we do this microfinance, we have to look at the ultra poor.
Okay. Mr. Hashim Khan Hoti, I would come to you. Definitely, there have been a lot of talk about Islamic banks joining hands in many areas. I mean, like specifically coming to this charity-related issues and CSR. What do you see? Where is the, where is the future? Is there any scope? How could they join hands together and come up with a common strategy and targeting specific areas like education, health, or microfinance, or targeting the ultra poor, as what Mr. Fadlullah Wilmot has said?
Well, I think this is a very challenging issue for Islamic banks because it is not their mandate to enter into any relief kind of activities of that nature. The only funds available to Islamic institutions are the unintended charity which they can give out, and even charity has specific conditionalities of whom you can give it to. Like, because under the Islamic Shariah concept, it is a nazar. And each bank has created their own criteria of whom they'll give it to. In Askari, for example, we have decided to give our charity to orphanages, to educational institutions, and to health areas. Okay. Those are the 3 areas that we give charity into. But the contract with our customers, who are Rabbul Mal for us, and they have their funds with us on Mudarba basis or whatever, we can't violate those agreements by trying to give out donations or charity to other people. Now, microfinance in Pakistan is extremely challenged.
Definitely.
Other than Khoshali Bank, I think there are 6 other institutions. All of them are facing great difficulties in survival. A number of them are merging or being sold off to other people. Others have found an easy way of going to the mobile companies like Tamir Bank and other banks, and their primary focus has shifted from microfinance to service-based industry like on the mobile instruments. Okay. The funds to microfinance come primarily from donations. Okay. And not from deposit generation or whatever. Okay. So this is a challenging field, although in Pakistan everyone realizes their corporate social responsibility. The less than 10% who are ultra poor, even the poverty figures are very skewed up in Pakistan. Some say it is only 18-20%, the government figures, but the unofficial figures are that it might be over 40%. And if you take the under $2 a day people, then it goes up to 70%. How are these people surviving? It is the undocumented economy. There are a lot of philanthropists in the country who help all these poor. But to do it in an organized manner from the perspective of the Islamic banks, they can give out this money from their profits. But like I said, this business is new, and the profitability banking sector in itself has come under some pressures over the last 2-3 years because of the global financial meltdown. So the profits have not been increased to a level where their board of directors would allow a certain percentage of it to go to these type of issues.
Coming to, yes, like you have a point?
Whatever the Hoti Sahab has said, it's true. Basically, whatever in last 2 days that we are talking about the charity and the donations, so I think it should not be the part of the whatever the amount we are taking from the customer as a charity, because on that scenario, he is very much true. We have already signed some thing with the customer. In that scenario, we will not be, the Islamic Bank should not be enforced to make the donation from that amount, because donations is something that the bank can give with some other amount as well, or as the State Bank is very much supporting in the Islamic banking growth and the other things. So there must be a suggestion that what kind of the percentage amounts the banks are paying at the end of the year as a tax. So my suggestion is that if the State Bank can allow at least 1% or 2% of the tax through Islamic banks, what they are paying as a tax on annual to the government of Pakistan. So if they can allocate 1% or 2% to be used as a donations or to be used as a for the microfinance setup. Because microfinance, if you're talking about the microfinance, is most important thing is mostly amount you need to give on a Qarza Hasna basis. If you can make the culture and the environment to support the people, what microfinance itself says. So if the Islamic banks can allow it by 1%, 2% for any amount, and that can be retained as to use for that particular cause.
Mr. Zulfiqar, what would you suggest? I mean, the notion is, okay, what could be the roadmap, how to help the like the ultra poor, and giving guidelines to IBIs for coming into this microfinance sector?
Yes, I will answer your question as well, and I will just briefly touch upon the three things that were discussed by the co-panelists. One point was raised that MFIs are not allowed to open or offer saving accounts to the poor in very remote areas, while in a few other countries, especially Bangladesh, it is allowed. Okay. So in this context, very briefly, like Bangladesh was the pioneer and started in the informal sector, so they had this luxury or the option of having the flexibility of taking the public deposits as well from the poor. But in Pakistan, recognizing that the microfinance has a potential, it's a need, so we come up with a formal regulatory framework in Pakistan, which still is not available in Bangladesh. So in Pakistan, working as an NGO MFI and becoming a full-fledged microfinance bank, with all the facilities of accessing public deposit is already available. So that's a key difference here. We want, because public deposits is a very important area. Any institution which is not regulated should not be allowed to take public deposits. Exactly. That's the basic basis for this permissibility. In terms of facilitating NGOs or MFIs to facilitate public savings, in Pakistan, 2 or 3 large MFIs are already doing that, and RSP is one of the example, which is actually not taking deposit for themselves, but they are facilitating clients to open their accounts in the normal banks. And so therefore, you can facilitate small savers for the saving. However, we do understand and acknowledge the issues of geography, especially in a province like Balochistan. That's a fact, everybody knows, and we acknowledge that. But the question of MFIs having the ability to directly intermediate deposits, probably that is not going to be allowed in Pakistan. The second point was in terms of what Hoti Sahib says, that in terms of actual experience of microfinance is not that encouraging for Islamic banks to actually go and do this. And this, I would like to put 1 or 2 points, is that we have a whole spectrum of different licensed microfinance banks which came into Pakistan, and every one of them had a different history and objective and background. So yes, you are right that if we say prima facie, none of, if not none, not majority of the microfinance banks have not performed up to the mark. But however, there are specific reasons and causes for each of the banks. The banks which started MFBs, which had the MFI microfinance background from the beginning, like Kashf and so on, and few others, they are, and First Microfinance Bank, they are operating very well. So what my suggestion in this regard would be, which I put forth before as well, is that there are specific good pockets of microfinance. What Islamic banks can do is actually go and do a pilot. And don't do that pilot from your own profits money. Do it out of either your CSR funds, or if you are using your charity funds, then definitely you have to go to that Qarzana Hasna route. You cannot be going commercial if it's a charity route. So both options are available to you. Go and do very specific, very small pilot. Understand yourself, the mechanics of the market. You have the expertise. And one more important thing, that in terms of the conventional microfinance, Pakistan, now there is a coverage in almost whole of Pakistan. People are aware of the microfinance. They are aware of the methodology of it. But in terms of Islamic microfinance, market is, to me, I don't have the hard numbers, but I don't think that they are more than 1% of the total microfinance universe. Versus, in terms of banking, Islamic banking have 7% market share. So in terms of microfinance, I don't think so Islamic microfinance have even a share of a 1%. There is a whole market available to you that you can enter into. The third point of giving a sort of a 1 to 2% tax rebate to Islamic banks and to allocate that 1 or 2% to Islamic finance or some other CSR activities. So here, what I can say from the platform of State Bank, the taxation is not our domain. That is number one. Number two, specific tax exemption for that money to be channelized to different areas is a whole subject that probably is in Pakistan. I think that regime is not here, that to any sector there is specific tax exemption and given, and that specific amount has to be utilized to specific area. So this subject, I think, has to be taken up with the CBR forum. However, what I can add here, that the normal concept of CSR, which the normal corporates, including both banks and others, are following, is that they allocate themselves 1 or 2% of their pre-tax profits for CSR activities. That's why it's called CSR. Because what you are doing is actually you are sparing your 1 or 2% out of your own earnable, profitable money that you are spending on social and welfare causes. That's why it's called CSR. Had it not been your own money, then we wouldn't have called it CSR. So that's the corporate social responsibility that the institutions are demonstrating by setting aside their own money, their net profit money. That's the whole concept of CSR.
Thank you very much, Hashim Khan Sahab. A quick wrap-up of this discussion.
Thank you very much. Well, in keeping with our hukukul ibad, it would not be doing justice if we don't allow these people to go for lunch soon. So just I'll wrap it up very quickly. And that is that there is no Islamic microfinance in the country at the moment. I agree that maybe Islamic banks can consider giving a certain percentage of their profits into these areas. But it would help if there is a dedicated Islamic microfinance institutions. Mr. Salimullah at the State Bank of Pakistan, I have discussed this matter with him. He is, positively inclined towards this area. Presently, the Islamic microfinance might be in the area of Qarz-e Hasna, but not from Islamic microfinance institutions, from general microfinance institutions. So this would be a recommendation, Mr. Hanfi Saab, if it can go to the people, that maybe they should consider a certain Islamic microfinance in which Islamic banks could do this.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. That's it for this session. Over to Mr. Rabia.
And can we have a round of applause for the panel?